I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it.
Hello amigos. Welcome to Move It Movie. As today's movie porter, we are giving a review on a movie that gets a lot of public attention, Cruella. Cruella is a 2021 American crime comedy film based on the character Cruella De Vil from Dodie Smith's 1956 novel The 101 Dalmatians. Academy Award winner Emma Stone stars in Disney's Cruella, an all-new live-action feature film about the rebellious early days of one of cinema's most notorious and notoriously fashionable villains, the legendary Cruella De Vil. Cruella, which is set in 1970s London amidst the punk rock revolution, follows a young grifter named Estella, a clever and creative girl determined to make a name for herself with her designs. She befriends a pair of young thieves who appreciate her appetite for mischief, and together they are able to build a life for themselves on the London streets. One day, Estella's flair for fashion catches the eye of the Baroness von Hellman, a fashion legend who is devastatingly chic and terrifyingly haute, played by two-time Oscar winner Emma Thompson, Howard's End, Sense and Sensibility. But their relationship sets in motion a course of events and revelations that will cause Estella to embrace her wicked side and become the raucous, fashionable and revenge-bent Cruella. Before she became known as a criminal with a savage affinity for dog skin clothing, Cruella De Vil was known as Estella, an orphaned girl living on the streets of London in the early 1970s, getting by on petty thefts and creative costumes. Her luck turns after she becomes an apprentice to London's most in-demand fashion designer, Baroness von Hellman. But just when it seems Estella's dreams are about to come true, she's confronted by her tragic past. It is sometimes hard to believe that Disney created a villain that kills dogs to skin for their fur coats. Then again, she is one of the most popular villains in Disney canon, giving reason to why she now has her own live-action origin story. Cruella De Vil, as we all know her, is the titular villain in 101 Dalmatians, which is where her cruelty and malice first graced audiences' eyes. Through the years she has been brought to the big screen through a number of acclaimed actresses, and now she has her own story to tell with Emma Stone as the lead. When it comes to Disney live action, many of their stories try to recreate the magic of the original, while also developing a new sense of authenticity for the characters. The archetypal aspects of Cruella that make her such a fascinating villain are the completely deranged notion she has towards the sweetest animals on the earth. However, with most Disney films reforming their content to suit all audiences, the evil nature of Cruella would make for one very somber film that would not necessarily align with Disney's brand. It is within this aspect of Cruella being too dark for her own film that Disney completely ruins the iconic character. Cruella has such malicious undertones and motives that a dark and grittier film resembling 2019's Joker would have amassed widespread acclaim for the character. Instead, Disney completely subverts any evil efforts from Cruella, as a joking matter spawning from a multiple personality disorder, and circumvents any bad judgment towards the vengeance of her dead mother. Disney, however, does do a wonderful job at making the audience truly root for Cruella, even though she turns out to be the evilest of them all. The film does this by creating an antagonist in her life who happens to be Cruella's mother, Baroness. The good versus evil relationship between the two characters sets up the entire dramatic element within the plot and gives rise to Cruella's evil nature that we later come to know and fear in 101 Dalmatians. This film is a Disney production and needs to be likable by all age groups. Instead, Cruella was turned into a fashion icon that starts a revolution through her creativity. Sinisterly superb, this is a well-crafted, phenomenally acted, artistically drenched triumph that's a whole lot more responsible than most other villain as main character films. And yet it does make a hero out of a criminal. So, there's that. It's easy to see why Disney might feel that the accolades for Joker and the merchandising bonanza for Harley Quinn should belong to them. They started this trend of re-examining villains with Maleficent in 2014. But Angelina Jolie's evil fairy wasn't relatable or aspirational, whereas many young fans wanted to be Vandal Harley Quinn. Just like many cinematic villains before her, Cruella is portrayed here as misunderstood, the product of trying to survive in a cold, unsympathetic world. She overcomes Oliver Twist-like adversity to find herself in a Great Expectations-like relationship with her boss, Baroness von Hellman. Estella becomes increasingly resentful of the Baroness abusing her and stealing her glory. In time, she gradually learns what a vile person the Baroness is, and vows to humiliate and destroy her and usurp her spot as the top fashionista in London. All in all, not a bad setup for a knockabout comedy drama set in what feels like an alternate universe, one that's more clever and colorful than the one we're stuck with, although Jasper and Fry never quite feel like more than obligatory sidekicks, and Cruella is given a childhood best friend, Maya, a photojournalist and gossip columnist who was reduced to the status of a plot device in the film's second half. When the past she's worked to put behind her comes back with a literal vengeance, she snaps. And she becomes awful, as in awfully glamorous and rebellious. Deliciously played by Stone, Cruella seeks her revenge with such smashing style that it's easy to think that it might encourage some kids to embrace their own mischievous side. That likelihood is encouraged by the fact that the movie is just so great, in every way. The art direction feels lifted straight from a Vogue shoot, and the fashion is fabulous. Just as punk rock was taking over Carnaby Street in London during the 70s, Cruella stands up to wreck entrenched sensibilities of stuffy haute design through bold, glam, rock-inspired creations, delivered with defiant disruption. The movie's robust soundtrack is loaded with iconic music from the 1970s. It feels exciting every time a note starts to play. The script is divine, and the actors seem to delight in their characters. Thompson's narcissistic fashion designer is such an ingenious character creation, and Paul Walter Hauser's take on henchman Horace is both authentic to the original animated depiction and a brilliant improvement. Another welcome modernization, bringing more diversity to Cruella's world. Some moments from the 1961 animated classic are revisited, Cruella driving recklessly with Jasper and Horace in her Grand Panther de Ville, while the repugnant concept of turning dogs into a coat is dealt with in a satisfying way. There's no question that it's much harder to tell a dark story about a hero turned bad and keep it appropriate for younger audiences who love the source material, but the magnificent craftsmanship shown by director Craig Gillespie proves it can be done. At the end of the story, Cruella breaks Jasper and Horace out of jail, recruiting them and Artie for her final scheme. They sneak into the Baroness charity gala, where the guests dress as Cruella in honor of her death, much to the Baroness' annoyance. The Baroness is led outside, where Cruella, dressed as Estella, reveals to the Baroness that she is her abandoned daughter. The Baroness pretends to show remorse for her actions and asks to hug her before pushing her over a cliff, unaware her guests had been led outside and witnessed the event. Cruella survives the fall using a parachute built into her clothing and discards her Estella disguise before returning to witness the Baroness being arrested. Having adopted the last name de Vil, Cruella inherits Hellman Hall as its rightful biological heir.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it.